Ethan sat quietly at his desk, his glasses slipping down his nose as he pored over pages of data. He had been with the company for a year, quietly working on small but impactful contributions. Yet, his unassuming nature and reluctance to promote himself left him unnoticed. On this particular morning, the office buzzed with news of a major project announcement. The CEO himself would be leading the meeting to discuss the company's direction, something that rarely happened. As the meeting began, Claudia strode into the room with her signature confidence. She was everything Ethan wasn't: loud, assertive, and dazzling in her bright red blazer. As a senior manager, she commanded respect, or perhaps fear. The CEO introduced the new project, a multi-million-dollar initiative that would redefine the company's core services. Claudia was named project lead, tasked with building a team to execute the ambitious vision. Ethan's name was called as part of the team. His heart sank slightly. He had heard about Claudia's management style, demanding and ruthless. Still, he resolved to do his best. Claudia barely glanced in his direction as names were read, and when the meeting ended, she didn't bother addressing her new team. Ethan wondered what the next few months would hold, but he had no idea how pivotal this project would become for him. The first team meeting was anything but smooth. Claudia dominated the discussion, brushing aside input from others. "Let's cut to the chase," she said, her tone sharp. "This is my project, and I expect excellence. If you can't deliver, there's the door." She outlined her vision, leaving little room for questions or collaboration. Ethan kept his head down, scribbling notes while others exchanged nervous glances. When Ethan finally mustered the courage to propose a technical solution, Claudia waved him off. "That's too simplistic," she said with a dismissive laugh. "Let's not waste time on amateur ideas." The room went silent. Ethan felt his cheeks flush as the team moved on, leaving his suggestion buried under a pile of more grandiose ideas. Ethan threw himself into the project, determined to contribute despite Claudia's treatment. He worked long hours, often staying late to refine the back-end systems. The more he delved into the work, the more he realized how complex and flawed some of Claudia's plans were. Yet, he didn't dare challenge her again in a group setting. One evening, as Ethan sorted through technical specifications, Rebecca, a senior team member, stopped by his desk. "You're doing a great job," she said quietly. "Don't let Claudia get to you. Just focus on the work. It'll speak for itself." Her words were a balm to Ethan's battered confidence, though he doubted the work alone would be enough to change Claudia's opinion. As the project progressed, Claudia began holding weekly meetings to update the entire department. These gatherings turned into spectacles where she showcased her leadership, often at the expense of her team. During one such meeting, she presented Ethan's work as her own, describing it as her innovation. Ethan sat in silence, unwilling to cause a scene. When the CEO asked a technical question, Ethan hesitantly tried to clarify. Claudia interrupted him mid-sentence. "Ethan, let's leave the big ideas to the big players," she quipped. The room erupted in laughter, and Ethan sank lower in his chair. His contributions felt invisible, and his self-esteem plummeted further. Later that day, Rebecca found Ethan in the break room, staring into a cup of coffee. "You can't let her push you around forever," she said, sitting across from him. "Your work is solid, and sooner or later, people will see that. Just keep going." Ethan nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed her. Still, Rebecca's words reignited a flicker of determination. He decided he wouldn't let Claudia's behavior derail his focus. His role, however small, still mattered. One Friday evening, as Ethan reviewed the project's back-end system, he noticed a critical error in Claudia's proposed strategy. The flaw, if left unchecked, could derail the entire initiative. He debated whether to bring it to her attention, knowing she might dismiss him, or worse, humiliate him again. After much deliberation, Ethan emailed Claudia a detailed explanation of the issue, along with his proposed solution. Hours later, he received a curt reply, "Fix it." There was no acknowledgement of his efforts or even a thank you. Ethan sighed but got to work. By Monday morning, the error Ethan had flagged became a topic of discussion among the senior leadership. Claudia presented the solution as though she had personally resolved the issue, earning praise from the directors. Ethan watched silently, feeling a mix of anger and resignation. Rebecca caught his eye across the table, giving him a subtle nod of encouragement. He appreciated her support but felt increasingly trapped in a cycle where his efforts went unrecognized. That week, Ethan received an unexpected email from the CEO's office, inviting him to a private meeting with the board of directors. The message was vague, mentioning a strategic review of the project. Ethan's heart raced as he tried to imagine why he was being called. When he arrived at the meeting, the directors praised his work, revealing that they were aware of his contributions to the project's success. "We want you to stay on track," one director said. "Your work has been exceptional, and we have plans for you." Ethan was sworn to secrecy but left the meeting with renewed hope. The following day, Ethan returned to his desk with a mix of excitement and apprehension. The private meeting had affirmed his efforts, but the secrecy surrounding it made him feel isolated. As Claudia breezed past his desk, she barely acknowledged his existence. The project's challenges continued to mount, with deadlines looming and stress spreading across the team. During a department-wide meeting, the CEO praised the progress of the project. Ethan expected Claudia to once again take credit, but the CEO's next words caught him off guard. "And let's not forget the tireless work of Ethan, who has been instrumental in addressing the technical challenges." A faint ripple of acknowledgement passed through the room. Claudia's jaw tightened, but she quickly resumed her practiced smile, masking any signs of irritation. Claudia's frustration became evident as the team pushed closer to the project's final phase. She began micromanaging, doubling down on her control over every aspect of the initiative. Ethan often found himself revising work late into the night, only for Claudia to dismiss his progress without explanation the next day. In private moments, Ethan wondered if the recognition from the board and the CEO was enough. He still felt like a shadow, his contributions obscured by Claudia's towering ego. Yet, he resolved to keep pushing forward, knowing the finish line was near. As the project neared its culmination, a critical meeting was scheduled to present the team's work to the board. Claudia insisted on handling the entire presentation herself, brushing off suggestions from Ethan and others. "Trust me, I know what they want to hear," she said with an air of finality. Ethan, however, noticed discrepancies in her presentation materials. Key data was either missing or misrepresented, something that could derail their chances of securing approval. When he pointed it out, Claudia's response was icy. "I've got it under control," she snapped. "Stick to your spreadsheets." Unwilling to let the project fail, Ethan stayed late that night, correcting Claudia's errors and compiling a backup report. He worked methodically, his attention to detail unwavering despite his exhaustion. By the time he finished, it was past midnight, and the office was silent. Before leaving, he emailed the corrected files to the CEO's assistant, attaching a note for reference if needed. It wasn't an act of defiance but a quiet safeguard against potential disaster. The boardroom was filled with anticipation as Claudia began her presentation. She spoke with her usual confidence, painting the project as a testament to her leadership. However, as questions from the directors grew more specific, cracks began to show. One of the directors asked about a missing metric, a critical element Ethan had highlighted the night before. Claudia faltered, attempting to pivot the conversation, but the board wasn't satisfied. "Ethan," the CEO said, turning to him. "Could you clarify this point for us?" Ethan rose hesitantly, presenting the backup data he had prepared. His explanation was concise and clear, earning nods of approval from the directors. Claudia's expression shifted from confidence to disbelief as she realized the impact of Ethan's work. The meeting concluded with the board praising the project's technical execution, much of which they attributed to Ethan. Claudia's discomfort was palpable, but she managed to keep her composure. Once the room cleared, she confronted Ethan in the hallway. "You went behind my back," she hissed. "I saved the project," Ethan replied calmly. His tone wasn't confrontational, but his words left Claudia momentarily speechless. For the first time, she realized the depth of her missteps. The following week, the CEO called a company-wide meeting to celebrate the project's completion. As expected, Claudia began her speech, but this time, the CEO interrupted. "Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge Ethan," he said, gesturing toward the young analyst. Ethan's colleagues erupted into applause, many of them surprised to learn the extent of his contributions. Claudia clapped along, her expression neutral, but the moment marked a significant shift. Ethan's presence in the company had been cemented, and Claudia could no longer ignore his value. Later that day, Claudia approached Ethan in the break room. She seemed hesitant, her usual confidence replaced by a tentative demeanor. "Look," she began, avoiding his gaze. "I underestimated you. I was wrong." Ethan didn't respond immediately, studying her carefully. "I'm not looking for an apology," he said finally. "But I hope this means we can work together better in the future." Claudia nodded, grateful for his grace, though the exchange left her with much to reflect on. In the weeks that followed, Claudia made a noticeable effort to include Ethan in team discussions. While her pride didn't allow her to apologize openly in front of others, her actions spoke volumes. The rest of the team began to see Claudia in a new light, and their respect for Ethan grew. Claudia spent her evenings in deep thought, revisiting her behavior toward Ethan and the team. For years, she had believed that control and dominance were the keys to success, but Ethan's quiet competence had proven otherwise. Her confidence, once her greatest asset, now felt more like a mask concealing insecurities. In an effort to make amends, Claudia began reaching out to team members individually, seeking their input and acknowledging their efforts. It wasn't an outright apology, but it was a step in the right direction. Ethan noticed her subtle changes and, though cautious, felt a glimmer of hope that things could improve. The team was assigned a follow-up project, smaller in scale but critical to maintaining the company's momentum. Claudia, to everyone's surprise, invited Ethan to co-lead. The announcement raised eyebrows, but Claudia stood firm. "This project requires technical precision," she explained. "And Ethan has proven he's the best person for the job." Ethan was hesitant but agreed, knowing this was an opportunity to solidify their working relationship. For the first time, the team saw Claudia defer to someone else's expertise, a shift that fostered a more collaborative atmosphere. As co-leads, Ethan and Claudia spent long hours brainstorming and problem-solving. Their conversations were initially formal, marked by a lingering tension. But as they worked together, they began to understand each other's perspectives. One evening, as they reviewed the project timeline, Claudia admitted, "I've been hard on you. I thought I had to prove myself by tearing others down. It's not an excuse, but I'm trying to be better." Ethan nodded, appreciating her honesty. "We've all got things to learn," he replied. Their partnership grew stronger with each passing day. Claudia's newfound approach began to influence the entire department. Team members who once worked in silos now collaborated freely, inspired by the change in leadership dynamics. Rebecca, who had long been a quiet supporter of Ethan, commented, "I don't know what's changed, but this feels like a new team." Ethan remained humble, redirecting credit to the group. Claudia, too, acknowledged the team's contributions more openly, earning back some of the respect she had lost. The office began to hum with a renewed sense of purpose. Midway through the project, an unexpected setback threatened to derail their progress. A critical vendor failed to deliver essential components, forcing the team to rethink their approach. Claudia's initial reaction was frustration, but Ethan remained calm, suggesting alternative solutions. "This is why we have contingencies," Ethan said during a tense meeting. Claudia hesitated but eventually followed his lead. Together, they navigated the crisis, impressing both the team and senior leadership. The setback, though stressful, strengthened their partnership. The setback pushed the team to innovate, resulting in a solution that exceeded expectations. During a review meeting, the CEO commended their creativity and resilience. "This is exactly the kind of leadership we need," he said, addressing both Ethan and Claudia. Claudia, who once thrived on individual recognition, found herself genuinely proud of their shared success. For the first time, she saw the value in lifting others up rather than competing for the spotlight. Claudia began to view Ethan not just as a colleague but as someone she could learn from. She often sought his advice, even on matters outside of their immediate project. "How do you stay so composed?" she asked one day, genuinely curious. Ethan shrugged. "I try to focus on the work, not the noise around it. And I've had people like Rebecca encouraging me along the way." Claudia smiled, recognizing how much she still had to learn about humility and collaboration. The project neared completion, but a final hurdle remained, presenting their findings to an external panel of stakeholders. Claudia, who once insisted on leading such presentations alone, surprised everyone by suggesting that Ethan take the lead. "Your technical expertise is what they'll want to hear," she explained. Though nervous, Ethan accepted. The presentation was a resounding success, with stakeholders praising both the content and the delivery. Claudia watched from the sidelines, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude for the man she had once dismissed. With the project completed, the team gathered for a celebratory lunch. Claudia raised her glass, a rare smile on her face. "I owe this team more than I can say," she began. "And to Ethan, for teaching me what true leadership looks like." The room erupted in applause, and for the first time, Claudia felt the genuine warmth of her colleagues' respect. Ethan, ever humble, deflected the praise. "This was a team effort," he said simply. But the acknowledgement marked a turning point in their relationship and in the culture of the department. As months passed, Ethan and Claudia continued to work closely, becoming one of the company's most effective teams. Their contrasting styles, Claudia's assertiveness and Ethan's thoughtfulness, created a balance that others sought to emulate. The once strained dynamic had transformed into a partnership built on mutual respect. "We're better together," Claudia admitted during a casual conversation. Ethan nodded, knowing how far they had both come. Their successes began to attract attention beyond the company. Industry leaders invited them to speak at conferences, sharing insights on leadership and collaboration. Claudia and Ethan, once an unlikely duo, became a symbol of growth and teamwork. Claudia often thought about her journey and the lessons she had learned. She saw how her transformation had not only benefited her career but also enriched her personal life. "It's amazing how much people can change," she told Ethan one afternoon. Ethan smiled. "Change is hard, but it's worth it." Their shared understanding deepened, solidifying a friendship that had once seemed impossible. Years later, Claudia and Ethan remained pillars of the company. Their story became a touchstone for new employees, a reminder that humility and collaboration could overcome even the most difficult beginnings. As they stood together at a company anniversary event, Claudia turned to Ethan and said, "Thank you for not giving up, even when I made it so difficult." Ethan nodded, his quiet confidence unchanged. That's what teammates do. And with that, they faced the future, ready to tackle whatever challenges came their way.